Welcome back to the channel. Your boy Papa Shro is back, and today we are getting into the QB rankings heading into the 2024 season. My personal quarterback rankings. We're going to go tier by tier. We're starting off with the rookies, as I'm kind of giving them their own tier. Work our way into, I think I have like 4 different tiers essentially to work into. This came from the podcast this past Monday, so if you are not tuned into the podcast, make sure you go check that out. Every Monday, 3 p.m. Central Time, dropping for you on Mondays. Smash that subscribe button. Again, we're on the road to 300. Also put out a little update yesterday on just kind of the 53-man cut, kind of an in-between on the podcast, Monday to Monday. So just a little update on that. And let's get straight into these rankings. But starting with the rookies. Number 1, Caleb Williams. Number 2, Jayden Daniels. Bo Nix, 3. Drake Maye, 4. And I left McCarthy off of it, even though he was there, just because of the injury, and we'll see what comes of that. But I did leave him kind of off of this list, and we'll get into the next list. Obviously, Sam Darnold is going to be the quarterback for the Minnesota Vikings, which they are in a fascinating situation, to say the least. But Caleb Williams, the film that I've seen on him, absolutely amazing. So far. I mean, obviously we're going to have to see it in a real game. He has the most weapons by far, with Keenan Allen coming in, drafting Rome Odunze, having, why can I not think of DJ Moore? Having DJ Moore there already. Cole Kmet, I think, is a solid tight end right there. I just think Caleb Williams, I mean, if anyone is going to have success this year out of this rookie class, is going to be Caleb Williams. And if he doesn't, I'm going to be worried as a dynasty fantasy player and having Caleb Williams on my roster. Now, Jayden Daniels, Bo Nix. This was one where I was really I couldn't make up my mind, because now I haven't really looked at too much of the preseason film from either one of these guys. But just the way that Bo Nix is trending, I almost want to say Bo Nix, but then at the same time, I also don't want to jump into that wagon of where the media's at with it and kind of pushing Bo Nix, because there was a moment where I was watching a video of somebody, showing some articles and things like that of just, Bo Nix, and I just thought in my head, there's no way this is going to work. They're already all in, sold on him, and as a Chiefs fan, I think we all know about a little bit too much about being all in on either a rookie QB, a QB that's unproven, coming over from somewhere else. I'm looking at you, Matt Castle. I'm looking at you, Brody Croyle. The saviors of the kingdom, right? Until Mahomes came along and changed everything. But I'm still going Jayden Daniels. I think the talent there is more than Bo Nix. And with what they both have to work with, which I don't think is much, you've got the skeleton of Eckler in Washington for the Commanders, and with the Broncos, honestly, I mean, I know Tim Patrick's still there. I don't know if I could tell you anybody off the top of my head really in Denver, which, don't come at me, Denver Broncos fans, like Bills Mafia did for that one. There's just a lot of Jags running around out there. And then Drake Maye, I have watched a little bit of film on him, and I don't love what I see. So I've got Drake Maye rounding this out with the rookies. So we got Caleb Williams, number 1, Jayden Daniels, number 2, Bo Nix, number 3, and Drake Maye at number 4. That's going to round out the rookie tier. Next up, what we have is maybe the most fun tier out of this, and I labeled it as 3 question marks, as you can see. And you have, starting off with Russell Wilson, Derek Carr, Minshew, Watson, Jones, Levis, Young, Darnold. This one was tricky for me. I gave Russell Wilson really just the benefit of the doubt here, and I put him at the 1. I'm not necessarily ranking them quarterbacks 1 through 32 in this list. I'm more so giving them a tier and then kind of ranking them in their tier where I believe they're, kind of at. I don't necessarily believe Wilson or Carr will finish the season as starters. Spencer Rattler's looked pretty good in the preseason, and I'm just mainly interested to see, because I also think there's a little bit with Spencer Rattler of maybe a chip on his shoulder. Because Caleb Williams, number one overall pick, is the guy that took his job originally that made him transfer from Oklahoma. So I feel like there may be a little bit of, just a little chip on his shoulder to maybe break through that threshold a little quicker than anyone expects. Of course, he was taken in the 5th round. And Derek Carr, look, going back to my personal dynasty league, I traded Chris Olave over the offseason for some draft picks, which may have been insane. But for me personally, from what I, read around the league and things like that of how Carr and Olave don't have a good relationship, and I felt like even watching some Saints games last year, like, my man, he is open over there. Throw the ball to Olave. Like, I don't know what's going on in New Orleans, but it just don't feel right. It is really how it sits with me, and I feel like Derek Carr has really kind of run his course in the league. And I was behind Derek Carr when he was in Oakland. Honestly, I mean, obviously I'm a Chiefs fan, so whatever, with the Raiders. But I did like Derek Carr, and I did think that Derek Carr was a solid quarterback and was going to be much more than what he was. I think the Josh McDaniels situation kind of ruined his career to a point. He never really, I don't know, was on that level necessarily, I don't think, of being, like getting to that threshold of the top tier. So I gave him number 2 just because we'll see. I don't think that he's going to last. And, compared to the rest of the guys in this group, Minshew, personally, I like Minshew. I think that was the right choice to go with him as the starter this year. And I think that he could be something for the Raiders. I'm very interested to see how the Raiders pan out of the one team that kind of needed a quarterback, didn't go out and try to get one. They didn't have a placeholder in place. They didn't have anybody, really. They had Aiden O'Connell, who was not good last year. And then they brought in Minshew. So, I thought Minshew was the right choice the whole time. Deshaun Watson, I have no idea. Who is this guy? That is my main question, because it's not the Deshaun Watson we saw in Houston whatsoever. He has not been able to find any success. And the fact that Flacco came on last year and was able to find a little bit of success with that Browns team, it's now or never, I think. He got the contract, he got all that guaranteed money, and maybe he's just playing it out. It is what it is. But I just think, when you look at the rankings, the fact that, I put him one spot ahead of Daniel Jones, I think it says a lot. Because then you got Daniel Jones that I think we all kind of feel the same way about Danny Dimes. We'll see. I think the writing's on the wall, though. The Giants are going to have to find a quarterback in the next year or two. But I do like the prospect of Malik Neighbors coming in, maybe helping out Daniel Jones be a little bit better, just a little bit. Will Levis is next. Personally, I do like Will Levis's game, the arm that he's got. And so I did put him over Young and Darnold. And really, Bryce Young, I just put over Darnold just because I'm iffy on Darnold. We'll see if these years as being a backup and kind of moving around in the league propels him. But the Vikings are just a weird team. He's got obviously great receivers. So, I don't know. It'll be an interesting year between those two. But I felt like almost the last 3 were kind of interchangeable. Personally, I just like Will Levis's game a little bit. I think the arm strength is there. I think potentially he could move up this list tier-wise. Essentially, I think. He has the potential to move up. I don't think he's going to be an elite quarterback in this league, but I do think he can kind of be a middle-of-the-pack kind of guy and produce something, but we'll just see what happens with that. But that's going to round out our 3 question mark tier. Going Wilson, Carr, Minshew, Watson, Jones, Levis, Young, Darnold, in that order. And, that's where I felt these guys were at right now. Next, jumping into Tier 3, Part 2. So, I think this will make more sense once I get to the regular Tier 3. But I just felt like Tier 3 needed to be broken up into 2 parts because I didn't want to just throw everybody in one tier. But I felt like there was a little bit of a distinction between who I was putting on Tier 3 and Tier 3 Part 2, but I didn't necessarily think they were in with the tier. I could have changed up the list a little bit, but I just felt like Tier 3 Part 2 fit this group the best, and that being first Matt Stafford as a guy that, he's getting up there in age. I do still believe in Matt Stafford's abilities. He's got some good receivers around him. We'll see what that LA Rams offense can be this year with McVay and, a team that was kind of quiet last year. And I still think could be a playoff team in 2024. And I do think as long as Stafford stays healthy, I think out of all of these guys, which, may be kind of crazy with Hurts there, Purdy as well. We'll get into those of how my thought process went through this. But I feel like Stafford is definitely right now heading into 2024 at this current moment. I may look back in 2 months and me say, what the hell was I thinking? But I think Stafford is clear cut, kind of the guy above all of these other guys. Now, my next one goes to Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts, to me, is in the same boat as Brock Purdy and Jared Goff, to a point. The reason I put him ahead of Rodgers is because I do still believe in Jalen Hurts' all-around ability. He can scramble a lot better than a Purdy or a Goff. Granted, he had 15 rushing touchdowns, most of them for probably 5 yards or less. With the push play, which ties into Josh Allen, which is another reason why I had Hurts lower. But I had to take into the context of Josh Allen and perception. Because for some reason, Josh Allen's 15 rushing touchdowns were much more impressive than Jalen Hurts' 15 rushing touchdowns. Which is fascinating because I think it was 11 out of 15 of Josh Allen's rushing touchdowns came within 5 or 10 yards or less. 10 of them for sure came within like the 2-yard line or less. They were push plays. It's the same thing. So why is Josh Allen's running prowess being, I don't know. I just don't get it. Or even to compare him with Lamar. We're going to get into that in a minute. But like Jalen Hurts and Josh Allen are the same guy running the football. Just Jalen Hurts had more rushing yards. Now, they're definitely not the same guy throwing the football, although they're fairly similar, and Josh Allen turns the ball over more. So taking that into context is how Jalen Hurts got the spot at number 2 behind Stafford on this list. Then I go to Rodgers. Rodgers, I think that kind of explains himself. The reason he is where he is obviously the injuries. He has plenty of talent around him. I don't know if Aaron Rodgers will be the same Aaron Rodgers, so I kind of put him in this mix of this Tier 3 Part 2 just because I think he's still in the mix with the elite of the league, but I don't want to put him ahead of some of these guys out here. Brock Purdy is the next one. Brock Purdy, Jared Goff, Kirk Cousins. More so Purdy and Goff. Purdy and Goff, I think, are the same quarterback. Like, the more I think about it, they might be the same quarterback. Honestly, because we haven't seen Purdy in a situation without everything being catered to him, right? That offense is catered to Purdy, made easy for Purdy, has elite weapons for Purdy to succeed. I think a lot of quarterbacks could succeed in that situation that have the mindset of a Brock Purdy and a Jared Goff. Jared Goff, the same kind of way. He was put in a good position in LA. They didn't believe in him. Stafford comes and wins a championship. But now he's put in a situation where they do believe in him. He has elite weapons around him. And Jared Goff has looked good. Jared Goff has looked very good. And Kirk Cousins kind of rounds out this tier basically for the same reason of Aaron Rodgers. I still think that he can be kind of mid-elite, you know what I mean? Like good enough to be a solid starter in the league, but I don't think he's going to raise up to 3 or 2. I think his kind of ceiling is maybe being the leader of this tier, essentially. So Tier 3, Part 2, got Matt Stafford, Jalen Hurts, Aaron Rodgers, Brock Purdy, Jared Goff, and Kirk Cousins. And now to the bulk of Tier 3. This one's going to be a fun one. Tier 3. Joe Burrow, Dak Prescott, Justin Herbert, Trevor Lawrence, Tua Tagovailoa, CJ Stroud, Jordan Love. I might catch some flack for the last two and being ranked where they are. But both of them, I don't think we've seen enough to necessarily put them yet in front of any of these other guys, and why I kind of put them there. Tua and Trevor Lawrence, to me, are almost interchangeable, but then I kind of went back to, like, with Tua, how much of it is Tua? And you could say that about any of these quarterbacks, but just, I don't know. I just feel like Tua's kind of being carried by that receiving core, and I mean, you could say that for a lot of guys. they're getting carried by the rest of their offense. I mean, it's a team sport. We're ranking one position in a team sport. So I'm trying not to put too much of that in there, and that's kind of where Tua stays. But I feel like, or why Tua is where he is. But I feel like, personally, if you were to ask me, final drive of a playoff game, am I taking Herbert, Lawrence, Tagovailoa, all have the same offense, all have the same coach? I'm probably taking Herbert and Lawrence both over Tua. It just is what it is. Now, with Dak being where he's at, because right here, if you're going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, Dak is number 5 on my list right now. And that one also might be a little crazy, but I don't think you can take away what he's done in the regular season. I might take all of these quarterbacks over Dak if we're talking about the playoffs, final drive of the playoffs, in a playoff game, and everybody has the same offense and coaching staff to work with. I'm not taking Dak. I mean, that's been proven. But I also can't just look the other way at the body of work that Dak has put up. And now you got the two guys at the end, CJ Stroud and Jordan Love, that are on the heels of, I think, the other 4 guys at least. Burrow's a special situation, and I'm going to talk about that in a second. But Stroud and Love are both right there. They have one more good season, and I'm looking at this in a different way of like, Stroud and Love might be ahead of all these guys in this tier. We'll see. We'll see. I'm very excited for both of them this season just to see what they put out there. But I'm also not ready to put them ahead of any of these guys that have really been established in the top of this game in the last few years. I'm just not ready to put Stroud or Love above a Tua, Trevor Lawrence, Herbert, or a Dak Prescott. I mean, we'll see how that shapes out this season. And I'm very excited. I'm excited to go back to this and, listen to my thoughts on all this. Joe Burrow. We have 2 tiers left. And, I mean, obviously Mahomes is his own tier. I mean, if you came to this video or this podcast thinking this Chiefs fan here was going to have Mahomes in with the likes of any of these other quarterbacks, no. We have a whole tier that's intentionally left blank to show the separation of Mahomes and the rest of this league, because there's no one on the same tier or level as Patrick Mahomes. Nor are they very close, I don't think. Joe Burrow is tier 3. I gave him number 1 on tier 3 for the simple fact that he is not on the same level as Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen at this point. There is absolutely a big 3 of the NFL right now. That is Mahomes, Jackson, Allen. Joe Burrow is not in that conversation anymore. Joe Burrow has played 50% of his career. Joe Burrow needs to prove he can stay healthy. If Joe Burrow can stay healthy, now I will say Joe Burrow is the most technically sound quarterback in the league, I do think. I think Joe Burrow has maybe the best pocket presence, some of the best footwork in the pocket in the league. He does it and makes it look easy. But if you can't play, if you're hurt all the time, I just can't put you in the same tier as these guys that we talked about as MVPs last year. While Joe Burrow was sitting at home and his backup was putting up similar numbers to him. And Burrow's another one of a case where he's absolutely getting carried by these receivers he has. The offensive weapons that the Cincinnati Bengals have absolutely elevated Joe Burrow. And that's not taken away from Joe Burrow is great when he plays. But there's no way you can put him on the same tier as a Lamar Jackson or a Josh Allen when who knows if he'll be playing in November. Will Joe Burrow be playing in December? Do the Bengals even make it out of that division? That's a tough division. These are all real questions. So, tier 3, Joe Burrow, Dak Prescott, Justin Herbert, Trevor Lawrence, Tua Tagovailoa, CJ Stroud, and Jordan Love round out tier 3. Tier 2, here we go. This one's going to be a fun one too. And this is going to be my last tier, and we'll round this podcast out. Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen. That is tier 2. You have a tier that is left blank in the middle, and then you have Mahomes at the top. This tier is Lamar Jackson 1, Josh Allen 2. The argument that I've seen for Josh Allen to maybe be the best quarterback in the league, maybe be at least number 2 behind Mahomes, is absolutely asinine. Josh Allen is not on Lamar Jackson's level. Josh Allen is not on Patrick Mahomes' level. You have got to be kidding me with that. Like, the more that I look into it, and I got something else coming out at some point in the next couple of weeks about Josh Allen, because the farce of Josh Allen is so fascinating to me at this point. The engagement I've had with Bills Mafia has absolutely took me to research and look into, just different things. And like I talked about with the Jalen Hurts thing. Jalen Hurts and Josh Allen, same thing. The only thing, rushing-wise, their passing stats aren't that far off either. But rushing-wise, you're taking less turnovers and more yards with the same amount of touchdowns with Jalen Hurts. Now, you tell me, was Jalen Hurts an MVP candidate last year? Like, by the end of it? Because we're still acting like Josh Allen was. And I don't understand that. You cannot turn the ball over the way Josh Allen did. Josh Allen is free with the football. Lamar Jackson has his turnover issues, but it is nothing compared to Josh Allen. And the whole argument is football is only about scoring touchdowns. Well, you know what? You missed one big part of the game, and that's not getting scored touchdowns against you. And I think I've went on a couple of tangents enough. Last week I did the same thing about the Josh Allen situation, because this is when this engagement kind of happened with Bills Mafia that led me down this rabbit hole of just the Josh Allen situation, because it's fascinating. Because, one, Josh Allen can't handle pressure. Josh Allen is one of the worst quarterbacks under pressure in the league. That PFF grade is abysmal under pressure. And night and day from, I don't have it in front of me right now, but it's something like when the pocket's kept clean, Josh Allen has like a 94 grade. When Josh Allen is under pressure, it's like 40-something. That's terrible. There's no way that Josh Allen is better than Lamar Jackson right now. I mean, that's just facts. I will give Josh Allen number 3 in this league all day right now, because I would trust Josh Allen in a playoff situation. Now, I will say Josh Allen is much better in the playoffs. With the turnovers, under pressure even, I think his grade under pressure in the playoffs is like around a 70. But then you also look at these other elite quarterbacks like Patrick Mahomes that raised that from a regular season 70 to like a low 90s under pressure in the playoffs. Not the same. And not even Lamar Jackson. It's not the same. Under pressure, Josh Allen is not good, especially in the regular season. And, all of these things are said about all of these quarterbacks is Lamar Jackson's had a great defense. Josh Allen has had a damn near top 10 defense his whole career. Patrick Mahomes got carried by his defense. Again, Patrick Mahomes just now got an elite defense. The receivers. Lamar Jackson ain't really had a receiver to throw to in his entire career. Meanwhile, Josh Allen wasted Stefon Diggs. Patrick Mahomes. Okay. Travis Kelce. Tyreek Hill in the beginning. What has Patrick Mahomes had in the last 2 years where he's coming off of back-to-back Super Bowl wins? There is no argument you can make to say Josh Allen is over either one of these two guys at 1 or 2 right now. And I don't understand how it's not a consensus around the league. Because, again, to me, in my personal opinion, you have 3 elite quarterbacks right now, hands down. There is a big 3 hierarchy. It easily goes Patrick Mahomes number 1, Lamar Jackson number 2, Josh Allen is number 3. And I don't think it's particularly close between either one of them. It may be closer between Jackson and Allen. But I still think that Jackson's pretty solid above Josh Allen. Bigger plays, more rushing yards. Maybe he got less rushing touchdowns, and insanely better touchdown to interception ratio. Lamar Jackson might be better than Josh Allen at throwing the football. Like, let's talk about that, because that's the knock on Lamar Jackson, right? He can't throw the football. But the guy that you're trying to tell me is better than Lamar Jackson has worse stats than Lamar Jackson throwing the football, and we want to cling on to touchdowns when you got a guy that's turned the ball over 75 times since 2020? Get out of here. That's not how that works. So with that, these are my tiers. this is my quarterback ranking list going into the season. I hope you enjoyed it. Got a little passionate there at the end. I plan to add some more passion to it next week. I'm hoping, I got my fingers crossed, to have Ray and EDJ on the podcast next week, and we're going to have this debate. So, again, if you're not locked into the podcast, make sure you do so to check that out next Monday, as well as hopefully we'll get into a more heated debate about these quarterback rankings. Maybe mine, maybe Ray's, maybe EDJ's. I don't know. We'll see. So, again, check that out. Smash that subscribe button for me. We're on the road to 300. Make sure you smash that like button if you enjoyed the video as well. Let me know in the comment section below what you guys think. Where's your quarterback rankings at? Who did I get wrong? Who did I get right? And how this rookie class is going to affect as the season, as you know, a lot of different rookies coming out of this draft class, a lot of teams moving up and down to make sure they get their guy. I think is interesting going into the season. And then you got a team like the Raiders that didn't do anything for a franchise quarterback while they're in pretty dire need for one. With Gardner Minshew taking over for Aiden O'Connell. O'Connell's still there as the backup anyways. Not to get too much into that. But again, make sure you smash that subscribe button. We're on the road to 300. New podcast coming up Monday to have Ray and EDJ. We're going to talk Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, I'm sure. All these top-tier quarterbacks. But until next time, make sure you tune in to that podcast on Monday. We'll see you then.